Floating meeting controls. All right. Okay, well, here we go. Well, back in our February meeting, we took a look at what we currently know about the genetic representation and distribution of the various Parke lineages in the British Isles. As you may recall, we have a fair representation in Ireland, primarily in the north, reflecting largely Ulster Scot lineages. Representation in Scotland itself is, at this point, minimal, with England just a bit better, but all countries could greatly benefit from a more vigorous research effort. Today, we're going to briefly take a look at methods we can employ to increase our knowledge through existing record sources, then create family groups and hopefully distinct lineages, then using DNA testing, both autosomal and primarily Y-DNA, to help identify the genetic group each lineage belongs to. To do this, we're going to begin building a database comparable to the Parke Society's Given Name Index, which we'll refer to going forward as the GNI. The Society's GNI was built up over the past 60-plus years and now stands at over 42,000 Parke-named individuals and is constantly growing. This was, at first, a slow process, with a bulk of the content comprised of the direct lineage information of members as they joined the Society. These direct lineages were augmented by research done by earlier researchers, such as Frank Sylvester Parkes, as well as additional research done by early members themselves. The role of the Parke Society in these early efforts was, and is still, our stated function: to serve as a clearinghouse of this lineage information. The small group of all volunteer staff of the Society was not able to perform extensive research on their own, other than in the case of a few dedicated members. The role of the officers, trustees, and staff was mainly centered on the administration and perpetuation of the Society itself, and we have many members, past and present, to thank for the fact that the Parke Society still exists so many years later and is still playing a vital role in the research of our common surname's heritage. As we discussed in our February presentation, this early research was heavily, if not almost exclusively, centered on Parke research in North America. What knowledge we had of our immigrant ancestors or any earlier generations was minimal and was largely due to the lack of access to record sources overseas in the pre-internet era. Excuse me for a moment. Susan is asking to come in, okay. At the same time, there didn't seem to be any analogous organization in the British Isles for our surname with which we could collaborate. If there did or does exist such an organization and anyone's aware of it, please relay that information along to us, as we would love to find that someone somewhere has done or is doing something similar to the Parke Society. In the absence of such an organization, the board and staff of the Parke Society, in conjunction with the Parke's DNA Surname Project at FTDNA, finds itself at the point of launching an effort to actively recruit Parke descendants in countries other than the US and Canada, an effort that seems both desirable and feasible. This member recruitment project will be combined with an organized research project to increase British Isles representation in our database and in the DNA project. While the GNI grew at a steady but slower pace over several decades, it's the goal of this research project to build what will be known as the IGNI, or International Given Name Index. Through such a research project, It should be possible to build the IGNI at a much more rapid pace than our original database, and within a year or two, we could well have an international given name index numbering several thousands. With a sustained effort, the database could be quite comprehensive within a decade or less. To that end, we're in the process of creating a working group of volunteers to assist in the gathering and identification of any and all Parke-named individuals in all British Isles countries from all available record sources. You can consider today's meeting, as well as the posting of this presentation on our Parke Society YouTube channel, as the first call to service. Any of you joining us here today, and anyone watching this in its recorded form, is urged to become actively involved to any extent that you're able. One additional thought. Even though I've just stated that the research will be focused on the countries of the British Isles, there's no need to confine it to that area alone. If some volunteers wish to concentrate on other countries, such as Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and other places where significant numbers of Parkes ended up, then we would happily widen our scope to include them. By adding in the element of DNA representation, the genetic map we talk about would then begin to cover the globe. We mentioned some of the strategies for building our IGNI in the February presentation, but let's quickly outline some of them here again. Census records exist for Scotland and England from 1841 to 1921, the most recent census year available to the public. Census records for Ireland are a bit more difficult to come by due to record loss. Effectively, the only complete censuses in Ireland available to the public currently are 1901 and 1911. By cataloging Parke individuals and families from these censuses, we can begin to build family groups in combination with other record types, such as births, baptisms, marriages, and death records. By building the database to include those alive in the 1921 census, and to a lesser extent the 1911 census in Ireland, we can accrue knowledge of individuals born as late as the early 20th century, when record sources of other types can be cross-referenced to these individuals. As an example, a search in the 1921 England census for someone born in Scotland turns up an Alexander Parke, age 77, widowed, and listed as father-in-law in the household. Well, this image is a little bit difficult to read, so let's take a look at an extraction of the information. This one record reveals a great deal of information with which to look for more records. Obviously, Mary Jane Ellis, age 51, is Alexander Parke's daughter. So we know her birth record about 1870 should be available in the civil registrations, which began in 1851. We also note that she was born in Liverpool, so that narrows the location to look for her birth record. Alexander himself was born about 1844, as we noted, in Aberdeen, Scotland, so we can look for his birth baptism record there. We can also track Alexander in the censuses from 1921 all the way back to the first census he would appear in, 1851. Along the way, we use family members, such as his daughter Mary Jane, to help confirm we're looking at the correct Alexander. His occupation in 1921 was listed as retired carpenter's shipwright, which also helps identify him in earlier records. Without going through the whole search journey, we can say with some certainty that we should be able to learn the identity of his deceased wife, including her maiden name and the date and location of their marriage, and the name of Alexander's father, at least, from his baptism record. And then by finding him in earlier censuses as a child, we should be able to identify his mother and any other siblings who can then be researched coming forward in time. Knowing who Alexander's parents are can also allow us to extend this lineage back one or more generations. By the end of this process, we should have a fairly comprehensive family group and lineage to add to the IGNI. The process can happen over and over again with the help of a team of volunteers who love researching. And this is how we plan to build and grow our IGNI database to a significant degree in a few short years. Excuse me, we've got another member gaining entry. All right. So where does the Park Society go from here in this expansion of its scope to include, well, the whole world? Some of you here today, or those viewing this on our YouTube channel, may not be members of the Park Society at present, but please know that we are most definitely hoping you will consider joining. While participation in the DNA project is open to anyone, Park Society member or not, and will always remain so, your membership in the Society has at least two very positive aspects. One, your modest membership dues of $40 per year will help the Society in its goal to expand the knowledge of our surname across the globe and throughout the ages. The Board of Trustees recently affirmed their willingness to make funds available in the coming weeks to create a fund for subsidizing a portion of the cost of DNA tests in the Park's DNA Surname Project. Once this initial investment has been depleted, an annual donation from our yearly operating budget, funded entirely by member dues, would enable this support to continue, thus increasing the genetic representation of Park lineages all over the world. The second positive outcome of your membership would be to add to the body of knowledge by contributing your direct Park lineage to our database, which is how the Society amassed its large index of Park individuals in the US and Canada. Those of you who are not Park Society members may be asking yourselves, well, how is the Park Society any different or any better than the many online genealogy sites where I can find family tree information? Well, I suspect you've all had experience with online family trees posted on Family Search, Ancestry, MyHeritage, GeniaNet, WikiTree, and others. While these can serve as valuable guides to expanding your research, I'm sure we've all had similar experiences of seeing family trees with information on our families that is quite simply incorrect, and sometimes in ways that boggle the mind. And even when that online information is correct, what all of these online sites cannot do, even those which allow the incorporation of DNA evidence, is put your lineage into a much larger context. Just as importantly, they cannot tell you when a particular Park lineage you're looking at is not genetically related to yours. Because of our wide knowledge of many different Park lineages, combined with their corresponding DNA information, we can alert you to the fact that a particular Park family that perhaps lives in proximity to your known family or had similar origins in a location in the past is not genetically related. Thus, we can help you avoid what I call barking up the wrong family tree. This can save a great deal of wasted effort researching people who are not part of your particular line. Bottom line, there is truly strength in numbers, and the more members we have, the more we learn and the more we can share. We're not here to make a profit, not that there's anything wrong with that, but our goal is to help Park descendants learn as much as possible about their origins and help them connect with their cousins wherever they may live. I hope you all here today and those watching this online later will join us in this goal. Our hope is that the Park Society, founded over 60 years ago, will still be going strong 60 years from now with a vastly expanded body of knowledge. Together, we can sustain the Society and leave a legacy to our descendants, just as we now benefit from the efforts of those past members who helped build the Society we know and appreciate so much. I thank you all for your time and attention and look forward to discussing this and any other topic that may be of interest to you. I'll turn the meeting back over to our president, Susan Van Allen, and look forward to your thoughts and comments. Now, bear with me while I undo everything I've been doing here. Okay. And feel free to unmute yourself, or as you wish to participate, unmute. So Susan, if you can hear me, take it away. You're still on mute.
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry about that. No, I'm sorry to be late, Kim, but thank you very much. I really enjoyed the portion of the presentation that I did get to see, and I want to say hi, everybody, and happy Sunday. So without further ado, one of the other things we wanted to sort of talk about today, just as an FYI, most people are probably very aware that 23andMe has filed for bankruptcy, and it's generated a lot of conversation in the sort of genealogy community about what do we do. And, you know, I've talked to a number of people about it, and we're not going to impart any, you know, we don't want to dictate or tell you what to do in this instance, just sort of share with you some options. Some people have chosen to delete their sample, but keep their data at 23andMe. Some people have chosen to do nothing, but have made sure they've downloaded everything that's at 23andMe, their findings and things of that nature. And then others have chosen to delete entirely, both their consent to storing this, you know, the sample, the saliva sample. They've also removed their consent to be part of research and product development. So, you know, I do have, you know, the instructions in the New York Times were not really helpful. You know, the best way I can tell you is that if you just want to go and you have a 23andMe account, or you're managing a 23andMe account for family members, you can go onto the website, log in to your account. I'm going to go through my notes just to make sure I do this clearly. You can log into 23andMe, go to your settings section on your profile. There will be a section probably at the bottom of that profile setting that says, you know, to download your information. And what you're going to want to do is, before you do take any other step, you may say, I just want to download my information and I'm going to hold for right now. That's great, but just make sure that it actually downloaded before you take a step that permanently deletes it. Also in that settings section, you're going to want to go to preferences. If you choose to say, I don't want them to continue to store my sample, you can change it in the preference section. And you can also, they will send you an email, and there will be a link in that email that says confirming your preference to not store. There's also a section in that in the preferences page that has to do with participating in research, and you would go in there to confirm that it was changed when you destroyed your saliva sample or requested the destruction of your saliva sample. I personally am downloading my information and I'm approaching it on a wait and see. I think if anything, I will request that they destroy my sample, but I'm not yet taken that step to sort of actively remove it permanently. In talking to other folks involved in genealogy, what we've been told is that the woman who started 23andMe has resigned from the board with the idea that she will then go back to bid on the assets at auction from the bankruptcy. She's still very wedded to 23andMe and the ideals that she'd set it up. So it's quite possible it could fall back into private hands, but it could fall back to the woman who created 23andMe in the first place. So sort of want to open it up at this point if anybody has any other questions or thoughts on what you're planning on doing with those assets.
Well,
And
if I can add
sure.
just a couple of thoughts on there. If for any reason you have tested with 23andMe, but have not transferred your test results into family tree DNA, or you haven't already taken a family tree DNA family finder test, or if you haven't tested with Ancestry and transferred that into FTDNA, then I would suggest doing so with your 23andMe file so that it retains that genetic information, and it also puts you in a different pool of potential matches too. So even if this weren't happening, it's a good idea if you've tested with any of these other companies to transfer that into FTDNA. That transfer process does not work in reverse with Ancestry, I know, and I don't believe it does with 23 or did with 23andMe. You had to test with them. But FTDNA can accept those autosomal test results or that file from a number of different companies. So that's another option. Also, if I think Susan gave a very good description of some of the process. I believe if you're not familiar with a blog called DNA Explained by Roberta Estes, it's worth subscribing to it. And she, I'm sure, has covered this issue already as well. So that's my take on the 23andMe. I have not downloaded, or I don't need to download. I haven't downloaded my matches, and I haven't closed my account yet. And I don't think there's any great danger until the company is sold and falls into other hands. So there's time, but it's something that you should, if you've tested with them, consider and sort of address. Anybody else have any experience with that? Have you done anything, or have you tested with 23andMe? No.
Well, yeah, I think when we sort of did not many people did 23andMe, they did the FTDNA. So, but, if you hear from people, you can certainly feel free to sort of pass on this information. But I think what Ken said about going to that blog page, and is a good resource no matter what. So does anybody have any questions? We sort of thought we would open it up for conversation based on Ken's presentation and sort of the update on 23andMe and really anything that you all are interested in talking about now. I think one of the things that maybe we could talk about as well is we really would love to hear from our membership about topics for our newsletter and topics for our monthly meetings. And really with, especially with our new international members and visitors, we'd love to know what would be of interest to you. We want to kind of expand our focus area and hit on topics and subjects that would be, of interest globally.
I see Gay's getting ready to speak. Good, because I wanted to ask you. We're not going to put you on the spot, but down the road, if you've probably had more experience dealing with the GDPR, are those the right letters? And we are going to have to be much more aware of that as we expand our scope. So, if you want to sort of give us a little tutorial on that somewhere down the road, that would be lovely.
I can, yeah, my society is a registered charity, and we have sort of rules on GDPR, and I must admit I don't perfectly understand them, but I'm sure I could delve into them and sort of find out what is and isn't. I mean, I know that we can't show it. We have 1,500 members of our society, and everybody has only got their own access to certain bits of it, and nobody can see the entire database and things like that. You know, that's as far as I can see it at the moment.
Yeah.
There are certain things we're allowed to do, and I'm allowed to do, and we can't sort of keep our own lists separately from the society's list, which are covered by GDPR, etc. You know, because some people have got told off for doing that.
Well, I think in general, we've all been observing general good practices in any case, and yeah, certainly in the DNA project, we have guidance, and here in the society, we don't publish information about living individuals, naming them and revealing vital statistics and that sort of thing. So I think that we're probably, for the most part, in line with that, but never hurts to.
You probably are, but what frustrates me endlessly is the fact that there is closure on certain records, and certain records that you think there should be closure on are available to the public, and it does tend to confuse the issues because, you know, the 100 years before we're allowed to see the census, but you can see anybody's wills that are left right up to the present date.
Mm.
It's can be very, very confusing,
Yep.
but. Yeah, I mean, I work in our local archives as well, and the archivist there has got all the rules on school record. You're not allowed to see the punishment books for at least 50 years and things like that. So anyway, I've just been looking now.
No, you went on mute. We lost your.
Right, yeah, right. I thought this Park Society was just to do with Park's DNA. I didn't realize the Park Society is separate from the DNA, that you can get members that haven't been tested. Am I right?
Well, that's, I think, our failing in the past to make clear that there is a difference. The
Right.
Parks DNA project at Family Tree DNA is a separate entity. We're very much aligned, and there's a lot of overlap in terms of administration and membership and that sort of thing. But being in the DNA project does not automatically make you a Park Society member.
Yeah, I think I've just learned the difference today, so I will be joining.
Good. I hope you will. And again, I think that's our fault for not making that clearer to people, and that's something that maybe I should make clearer on the DNA project page as well.
Well, I got a shock when my DNA results came back, and the very same day I got an email from you.
Yeah.
Years ago. I thought, oh, psychic or what? But then I've gradually got to understand it. But okay.
Also, I just want to point out, if you haven't checked it out, member or non-member, that our new Park Society webpage went live, a week or two ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Relatively new, and we hope it's an improvement on what was there, and it's a work in progress. And we're very open to hearing from all of you with suggestions about things you'd like to see on there and content you'd like to see. One of the new aspects of this new webpage is we have created a password protected section for members only, so that we can post information that is there for the benefit of members and can include, for instance, we have a listing of all active members, what their lineage key is, which we talked about in the past, and if it's represented by DNA, what their DNA group is.
Right.
What we have to do going forward soon is start reaching out to members to ask them, because it's going to be an opt-in aspect, is if they want to put a contact email on there. We in the system have it, but we're not going to make that put that on the web unless people ask us to. And if there are any members here today, I've lost track of who has and hasn't, but if you haven't logged in and created your account so that you can access those member pages, please do so.
I haven't done it yet. So I will be doing it. But I think I explained in an email to you, I'm absolutely inundated and drowning in Viking ancestors at the moment.
I'll look forward to hearing that. We'll have to have a private one-on-one and hear more
Yeah.
about that. Yes, Gay's been doing some research for her granddaughter, and
I know. Shall
oh,
I just explain a little, just a very brief bit?
sure.
She wanted to be tested for DNA, but this was through MyHeritage, my autosomal. And I just had a kit around, so she tested. The results came back in mid-February, and it predominantly seemed to show that most of her ancestors were Scandinavian. And yeah, as far as we know, there wasn't any Scandinavian ancestry, apart from what might be way back going into Scotland and then to Northern Ireland. Anyway, within a little while, I got a match. And this match, we contacted each other and found out that we linked to a marriage somewhere in 1600. And I then looked up the female, because I was researching the Quintrell surname in Cornwall. And then I found there was a marriage between Anne Ward and John Quintrell. And Anne Ward turned out to be the daughter of Sir Stephen Ward, who was a courtier to King Henry VIII. And his father before him was also the gatekeeper at Windsor Castle. And I started going back, and I thought they were nobility all the way back. So I got back to one generation before William the Conqueror. And then I found I was in this noble family from Normandy. And I got back another further 7 generations. And all of a sudden, they weren't French names. And there was this chap called Malahulk de Einsteinson from Uppsala in Norway. I was back to a genuine Viking. And I've now got back into the year 620 in Vikings. Genuine people, genuine links, all relating back to one another. I mean, what genes we still hold from that is ridiculous, but the detective work has been interesting. And yeah, I've got name people, all the generations going from 620 to the present date. And I'm trying to write it up for her 14th birthday into a book. So I've just finished the chapter on the Vikings, and I'm just starting on the Normans now. So I've never done anything like this in family history. I've been doing it for 30 years. I've never had this sort of luck before in my life. So it's been quite exciting.
Well, I'm jealous
Wow.
because I'd be thrilled if I could learn the father of my 4th great grandfather. He still eludes me.
Exactly. And I still want to contact the rogue that impregnated great grandma.
Yes. Well, I just to let you know,
Yeah.
Gay and I are genetic cousins, and her family was a result of an NPE, as we call it. And the fellow who was responsible later married another woman and took off for Australia. And so just yesterday, I started looking, and I found them, yes, around Ipswich, outside of Brisbane in Queensland. And I think I have most of the next generation. And so then we're going to try to start tracking down and find some cousins, some living cousins at some point.
Wow. Yeah, DNA is remarkable. I was doing some society work for another group, and somebody contacted us and said, I don't know how I'm showing up as a Blair because there's no Blair in my family. And we were able to, given what she had, given how we related it to our DNA project, this is for the Blair Society, we were able to identify the individual who was the was the father of her ancestor. And that was the first time that had happened for me in a sort of a real life scenario. So it was very satisfying to sort of be able to resolve that for the family. At first I was a bit worried, but it was so many generations ago that I thought there was no one who was going to be clutching their pearls when that information was shared. So, but it was really a, taking the DNA and then being able to look at our records and then be able to go and to actually, in real life, connect in. All of the information was just very satisfying.
Oh, and George, I said I owed you an email, and I was going to try to reach you before this, but I ran out of time. But I will send soon. It's just there's a lot of complicated information, and so it's something I couldn't just dash off. But you have a match that does, well, it shows up in your matches, and you may have noticed it. I won't say the name here, but the gentleman's deceased a few years. His daughter manages his account, and you would be a fifth. It was a Malcolm Parke, if you saw it.
Yes, yes, I saw it.
He was
In
Australian. His daughter removed his test from the project several years ago because it wasn't getting any matches, which is exactly the wrong thing to do, because if once it's there, you never know when that magic match that's going to unlock everything is going to show up. So I'm going to reach out to her and try to get her to put the match back in. And the good thing is her father's test is at the big Y level. So we have a haplogroup for him. And if your big Y results ever come in, and I think it could be another month, they just take forever and ever. But then it'll be very interesting to see if that big Y haplogroup for him comes forward in time once it's matched to you. So we got that to look forward to. But
is that Glynis from Australia?
Exactly, yeah.
She's been in contact with me
good.
a while ago.
Yeah.
I have a question with regard to the Parke Society. The last time I looked, membership was only payable by check.
That has changed.
It has changed.
That has changed.
Good.
Yeah, we have on the new website, we have the ability to pay by either, I think, credit card or PayPal or something like that. And it will do the currency exchange and take care of those problems.
Brilliant.
And that's one of the reasons years ago we restricted membership, because before the internet and before easy access to currency exchange and that sort of thing, it was dealing with international mail and checks and and we only published our newsletter in hard copy, so you had that mailing issue. So we're trying to tentatively stick our toe into the 21st century, and we hope we're getting there.
I have one more comment. Just getting back to DNA results and where we are from. And what has surprised me is that my DNA is 44% Scandinavian and something silly like 8% in Ireland, Scotland.
Well,
6% from the Italian peninsula, or from Italy, that area.
Yeah.
But I know that's from my DNA, that's from my mother's side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my Viking blood is also quite thick, but I've not yet found anybody that I can go. I mean, I've gone back with the Parkes as far as I can go, but I've not picked up anything. I haven't picked up the Scandinavian side yet, so I'd find that very interesting if I could.
Well,
how far have you gone back, George?
I think about 1650 thereabouts, which is confirmed information.
Is that in Aberdeen? Are you the one chap from Aberdeen?
Yeah, no, well, my parent, my dad's from Aberdeen. Yeah, yeah, I've gone back on his side, but it's very difficult to find more information. I mean, there's a William Parke, but unless you've got some documentation. I mean, fortunately with you've got the being nobility, all that stuff has been documented.
Yes, it has.
Whereas the normal person, the commoner hasn't had that, doesn't have that luck. So, what I find quite strange is that all the links to any of the nobility and that in England and Scotland is all through my mother's side, who are all originally from Belgium, France, French Huguenots.
Oh, so well, I'm originally from Belgium as well.
Well, those
Mother-
royals, little bit of intermarriage over the ages.
No, what I found out though with doing this Viking research is that the Vikings, they were the Jarls of the Orkney Islands and lots of the northern Scotland, and a lot of it wasn't ceded back to Norway till about 1452, 1472. They sort of pushed the Picts out of the way, and they owned the kings of Norway owned a lot of northern Scotland, the very northern bit.
Mhm.
So
you
that
had-
might
you
be your links to some
Probably, yeah.
Viking hanging around.
Yeah, because you had like Ragnar Lothbrok, who was here in
Yeah,
around about the 700s, 800s.
yeah, it was.
So, it goes back way back when. Well, from Lindisfarne days, really. That's when it's really started.
Well, I've got back to what's it called? Eystein Glumra and his sons became the Earls of Orkney.
Okay.
So, and they're sort of distantly related to Ravnar. So, the Vikings were hanging around in northern Scotland,
Oh yeah.
not long before what you trace back to.
Yeah, some of my DNA, my DNA has been found in a boat that was found, I think, near Reykjavik in Iceland.
Mhm.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to point out, you
Yeah.
asked about the percentages and not being able to find it in your family tree necessarily. Those percentages can vary from one testing company to the next, and they can constantly change them and adjust them even within the same company, because all they're doing is comparing your DNA to others who have tested with their company.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're testing it. Now they may include some ancient DNA samples and things like that, but by and large, that's the reason it varies so much, is because they're just comparing it to their own customer database, and as that changes, and so yeah, very often it's hard to figure out why those percentages are so low or so high, or how a certain area fits in when in your research you just don't see it. But
I've seen this in FTDNA, funnily enough, it's on there.
Yeah.
It's come up with the amount of Scandinavian and less Scotland.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, how extensive is FTDNA's coverage compared to, say, Ancestry?
Oh,
Small.
almost minuscule. Family Tree DNA was the first company to offer commercial testing for people, but they have nowhere near the kind of marketing budget that Ancestry and even at the one time 23andMe did. They almost do no advertising. It was all through project administrators, recruiting family members, and of course us through our society members and things. So the database is much smaller, and particularly in the autosomal. I mean, they sort of own the game in terms of Y-DNA, but autosomal ancestry is probably by a factor of 10 or more larger.
But-
Can I give George a little bit of a clue on these changed ancestries? Because I got changed from my granddaughter's MyHeritage autosomal, and all of a sudden this high Scandinavian disappeared. And then they started doing this slider where you could check the percentages at different periods of history. So it went back to the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the Romans, and then medieval times. And when I went back to the Bronze Age, that was just normal, what you would expect for European sort of distribution kind of thing. And then I got as far as the Roman period, and all of a sudden, she was 63% Germanic tribes. So, but then less now in current days. So that's why they've changed the percentages. But then they have these genetic similarities to compare with. and near the top were the genetic similarities to Norway in Uppsala. And the first kings I've got back to in paper records is to the kings of Uppsala in Vag. It just pinched together like that. I was on a high. I mean, I couldn't even explain it to anybody that hasn't done DNA before. It was just amazing. So that might be, because the sample, because over a period of time, the percentages change as you develop more relatives and they all disperse, kind of thing. So I found that because she said, I'm not Viking anymore. She was just looking at the results. But then, yeah, that's what's happened in my heritage's case.
Well, I have a test kit from my heritage sitting over here on beside my table that I haven't taken. It came last week. And so now I think I better send it in. I want to go back to 642 as well. I'm sure we'll all have success.
No, I mean, she's absolutely, her head wouldn't come through the door afterwards. It was so, and her little friends at school, so I just, we can do my DNA, So, there you go. It's a 13-year-old, that is.
Yeah. Anybody else and any other topic or questions or whatever? The floor is open, huh?
I want to talk about these Ipswich parks, Ken. I need to follow that up, but I have recently, because I run a family history group locally, and I'm only doing the meetings on Zoom now, and a regular member just recently is from Sydney in Australia, and I'm going to try and persuade her to try and see if she could do anything to find those people.
Well, I'll send you what I pulled
you.
off the web yesterday, and I just
did you
found.
Did you find an obituary?
Well, there are listings on Find a Grave, and then there's
right, okay,
marriage information, and
right.
but I also on WikiTree, which is how I found George, or we found each other. I just found one of those family members in somebody's tree, and I'm going to reach out to her. She's in Australia, so I think she's in Brisbane. So hopefully we can contact, and maybe she knows some DNA candidates.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be good.
And we know more about the origins than she does. She has back to one of the sons of Alexander, but she doesn't know Alexander. And certainly, you've got I think 2 or 3 more generations earlier than that. So
yeah, exactly.
I think she'll be glad to hear from us. So
thank you, thank you, Ken.
Yeah.
Right. I'll be quiet now.
Anybody else? Such a shy group.
Can I ask George another question? If you've got parts going back to Aberdeen,
I beg your pardon?
If you've got parks going back to Aberdeen, have you got any parks in Ireland?
No, I haven't picked up any in Ireland yet.
Oh, right. Okay. Just wondered where you're about 1800 your parks were.
Yeah, no, mine come from up Fraserburgh way, New Deer, Old Deer. That area going way back.
So they're nearly all Scotland then?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
But I mean, I know that a lot of this, because you had the Ulster Scots that also went over to Scotland. So it's a possibility that way back when, I don't know, that Ireland comes into it.
I think our parts in our, I think it came over with the plantations, ours, because our parks in Northern Ireland, because they were Protestants and Orange men, which I didn't want to belong to.
Yeah, there's a very long family poem that we published part of in one of our newsletters that came down. It was written by a Parks in the United States that came from a Canada line. They came from Canada, and before that from Armagh. And he did it's an amazing history of the family. in rhyme. I mean, it goes on for pages, but somewhere in there, and this was written, I think maybe around 1920, but he mentions something about them coming from Scotland in 1640. Now, where that date
Right.
comes from,
That's interesting.
or whether it was just a family legend or something, but it's at least it's consistent with what we know about the settlement of the plantation. So,
And they were the Highland clearances as well. Interesting, very interesting. Thank you.
Well, Ken, if we don't have any more questions, I'd like to thank you for your presentation today and for directing the conversation and for all that you've done to our website and on our DNA project. You've been very busy. So thank
check
you.
out the website. Check out the website.
Yes, please check out the website. But we thank everybody for joining us, and we hope to see you next month.
Okay, Tad,
Thank you.
I have a question for Tad before we go.
Okay.
And this is just, you need to, can you hear me, Tad, or? Okay.
Yes, yep.
I got another email from that researcher who is desperately trying to find documentation on Albert. I sent you a couple of emails regarding this.
Yeah,
And I replied back to her that you've been under the weather and suffering with the anesthetics. But she's desperately trying to find some documentation, printed documentation, verifying parentage on Albert, and that's the Thomas line.
okay.
Do I need to send you another email with
Oh.
the trail?
No, I'll look at that now, okay?
Okay. She found us based upon that email that was that posting on Facebook right after we went live with the new website.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to get a new member who is tied to this Albert. And this researcher that has contacted us, I want to keep her in her good graces.
Okay,
So that's why I'm pestering you.
okay, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. I'm done with Tad.
Well, thanks, everybody, and have a great April, and we'll see you in May.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Take care,
Good.
everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye-bye.